Let me introduce our first guest, the director of Ghost in the Shell. Give it up for Rupert Sanders. Hello, Rupert.
Hello.
Please have a seat.
I feel like I should be an MMA fighter after that. I'm just like a normal guy in a suit.
Absolutely. Okay. So, welcome to Japan.
Thank you.
Is this your first time here?
No, I've been here a few times.
I see. Okay. And tell us about your visit here and the relevance of having this event, this press release here in Tokyo.
I think really the first thing that we wanted to do when we launched the film was to come to the birthplace of the film, to show both the creators, the people who really started the whole thing going, that we were taking this next chapter of the legacy very seriously, and that it wasn't going to be something they'd be upset about, they'd be very proud of. So it was important for us to come here and say, this is what we've done, this is what we're doing. We're not remaking, we're reimagining, but we're reimagining with you, alongside you, and it's a great honor and privilege to work with some of these people. It's great to hear Kenji this evening, and that really to me is what's so great about what we did tonight, is to be able to hear the original score with our new shelling sequence. So it's a real, the next chapter.
Mm-hmm. Now, Ghost in the Shell, it's a classic, it's an icon. What does it mean to you, and what do you plan to bring it, what have you brought into your vision of this piece?
Well, from Shirow's manga to Oshi's anime to Kamiyama's standalone complex, I didn't really have to do anything. I just stole from all of them and put it together, and off we go. So my job was very easy. No, in seriousness, it's been to draw on something as seminal as that. I was a fan growing up, so to me it was an honor to take that stuff. And I tried to, my litmus test was, do I like what I'm doing? My gut check, and if I was kind of inspired by it, then it kind of stayed in the film.
Mm-hmm. I see. Now, GITS, Ghost in the Shell, it's been some time since it first appeared in the manga. But what would you say is the relevance of Ghost in the Shell today?
I think in '95, for me, first seeing Oshi's film was so ahead of its time, and I think really some of those ideas are just catching up to us today. I think there's so many elements of when we are consumed by technology to the degree we are, where does humanity sit in that new kind of technological order? We trust so much into our devices. As you can see, everyone's deviced up. We tell people where we are, what we buy, what we shop, who we talk to. And that goes somewhere, and I think what Ghost says, there's a ghost of information and technology out there, and one of the points of the film and one of the points of the manga and the anime was trusting in technology. And I think to me the thing that I try to kind of transmit through the film is that there's hope in technology. It's not an evil thing. It's something that if we parent it right, it will be part of us as humans, and we won't be obsolete.
How would you describe the world that you created in Ghost in the Shell?
I think we set about trying to create a very original take on the film. I think it's the thing that most people, when they see it, are surprised about. It's very emotional. It's a very action-packed film. It's got a lot of crazy environments. It's a future we haven't seen before, but ultimately it's the journey of a character who's trying to find herself. At first, she's a human brain in a machinate body, so she's trying to come to terms with technologically what that is. But ultimately, as the film moves forward, she's trying to understand not just what she is, but who she is.
I see. How much influence has the source material been on making the version of GITS? I thought the opening was just incredible. It was. A real feature, a live feature of the opening.
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's so many, as a fan myself, there's so many things in that film that I wanted to, personally bring to life. It was fairly selfish endeavor. I love that so much, and I was able to draw from so many great bits of inspiration. I think, we wanted to make we wanted to bring Ghost to a huge audience. We wanted to bring it to a global audience, but we didn't want to water it down. We wanted to keep those themes, keep those ideas, keep the cyberpunk aesthetic to it very much alive. And I think Scarlett as the Major really channels that attitude and that edge that I think is so much part of her as an actress.
I see. Again, this is a classic in the genre. Did you feel pressure in making this into a film?
You feel pressure making any film, I tell you. It's not. It's all very glamorous when you're here, but most of our lives are spent in the pouring rain and the mud. But I won't complain. What was the question?
Pressure.
Pressure,
yes.
pressure. It's got to me. Yeah, you know, whenever you're doing something in the public eye and it's a very cherished film, and you have to kind of silence it, really. You know, you can't read the blogs and take it at face value. You just have to say, I'm lucky enough to be in this position to do this job. I feel very strongly about the legacy of Ghost. I'm the next part of that chapter, and hopefully, you know, a very long continuing story through the franchise of Ghost in the Shell, which is already a huge universe. So yes, I felt pressure, but you always feel pressure as an artist creatively in any endeavor you do. So you just have to do the best that you can do and hope that is successful.
What did you feel the most? I'm sure you had a set of aesthetics dealing with this. What is one point that you really wanted to come across as far as the spirit of the work?
I think that the tone of, you know, it's hard when you take something like an anime or a comic book or a manga from the page or from the animated frame into cinema. It's a bumpy transition a lot of the time, and I think there's successful cases and not such successful cases. But to me, again, it was strong source material to work with. It was really just a question of tone and the attitude of the film that I was just trying to maintain. That is that Ghost in the Shell. When you're looking at casting, is that Ghost in the Shell? You're looking at a location, is that Ghost in the Shell? You know, we designed the world from shoes up. You know, there was a lot of kind of source material to work with, obviously, but then it's like, well, how do you bring that to life? And it doesn't feel strange because it's being photographed. There's a difficulty when you go from a comic book or anime to the cinema.
Right, I see. Now let's talk about the casting, especially with Scarlett playing the role of Major. How did this come about?
To me, you know, when I cast very much from the gut, and I think I was very lucky to be able to get an amazing international cast of people that I've always really wanted to work with. Scarlett was one of those people, and to me, there's very few actresses who've had 20 years experience who have the cyberpunk aesthetic already baked in. You know, she comes from such edgy films, from Lost in Translation to Under the Skin. You know, she's got an incredible body of work, and the attitude and the kind of toughness of her really is, to me, the Major. But also what she's done incredibly in this film is she's playing an android. She's a synthetic body with a human mind inside. She did an incredible job of nuancing the human, kind of evolving through the machine. And in a way, I think why it's very relative to a large audience, it's kind of a coming-of-age story, and it's a realization of I am what I am. Whatever's happened to me, good or bad, that is the sum of who I am now.
I see. Now, some people, of course, it was anime and you brought it to real life. Some people might be critical about the casting of Scarlett as the Major. What do you have to say to that?
I think whenever you cast someone, someone's going to be critical about it. I mean, to me, it was, you know, I stand by my decision. She's the best actress of her generation, and I was flattered and honored that she would be in this film. And I think, you know, so many people who are around the original anime have been vehemently in support of her because she's incredible, and there are very few like her.
I see. Now, did you know of Beat Takeshi?
Come on, you can clap. She's coming out later. She'd want a warm house.
Now, let's talk about Beat Takeshi. Did you know of him before you cast him as Aramaki?
Yeah, very much so. I grew up on Hanabi, Sonatine, Outrage. I was, you know, I guess to me, cinematically, he was a huge part of my growth as a filmmaker, kind of early on, just watching those films, being like, you know, where did those come from? And I saw so much of his work had been echoed in other films that came over to the West, and it's always great. It's like finding a hip-hop track, and then you find the rhythm from like an obscure kind of 60s hippie band. You're like, wow, that's incredible. And it was kind of the same with Takeshi. It's like, God, I've seen all that stuff before, and that's where it comes from.
Okay, so he's like the motherlode almost.
Yeah, he's an incredible, you know, and when I was lucky enough to be approached about this, you know, Aramaki, there was no one else who could play Aramaki. It took a while to get Mr. Kitano to sign on the dotted line. I had to chase him across the world to get the paw print, but I got it in the end.
But you got your guy.
I got him in the end, yeah, and he does a wonderful job in the film. And I think what's amazing is he speaks Japanese through the film, and Scarlett as Major speaks English. It's a beautifully tender kind of fatherly relationship, and again, it's, you know, it just goes to the emotional strength of the film and the kind of the legacy and the heritage of this being a Japanese property that's now a global manifesto.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Beat Takeshi as Daisuke Aramaki. Okay, let me introduce him again. A Japanese icon, B. Takeshi as Daisuke Aramaki, ladies and gentlemen.
こんにちは。渡辺健です。
はい。それではちょっと質問をちょっと英語でね、いろいろさせていただきたいと思いますが、Mr. Takeshi, are you a fan of Ghost in the Shell?
まあ今考えると昔はみんなアニメバカにしてたんですけどね、私は。で、実際にこれが実際できた時のものの時には、ちょっとアニメ的には、なかなか抑えたいい作品だと思ってましたけども、他の作品はちょっとまあ AI とかそういう技術が突出していく割には刀で切り合ったりなんかして、なんだこれはっていうようなことがあったんですけど、この映画に参加した時にやっと今の時代にあの時代の SF 的なアニメがやっと今違和感なく、作れるなという時にちょうど当たって、自分が荒牧役をやらせていただくことには非常に嬉しいし、ただ漫画アニメにおける荒牧の顔を見ると左牧前みたいに情けないんでちょっとあれだったんですけども、メイクさんと相談して、コーディネーターの方も相談して、自分なりには納得できるメイクだと思います。
I see. What excited you about being part of this film?
やっぱりすごい基本的にはこのアニメは日本製なんでね、セクション9休暇っていうでもハリウッド映画なんで英語を使わなきゃいけないんで、かたくなに英語は嫌だと、実際はできないから嫌だって言ったんですけども、そしたら日本の休暇のあれだから日本語で構わないっていうことになったんですけど、今度困ったなとセリフ覚えが悪いって言ったんですよ。そしたらプロンプターがいるという、それでも字がよく読めないといういろんなことを言って、何癖つけたんですけど、一番感動したのは主役のスカーレット・ヨハンソンが俺のカンペを持ってたというこれを本当に記念写真で撮りたいくらいの感動だったんですね。それ以来ちゃんと覚えるようになりました。
He was just basically saying that, like he had some hard time trying to do the lines in English, so you were kind enough to let him speak in Japanese. But then he goes, I had some problems memorizing the lines, so he was asking for a prompter, and he goes, but the best thing about doing this movie is having Scarlett Johansson putting up his cue cards in front of him, which he thought was quite incredible, is basically what he said. Now, how would you describe the character of Aramaki?
まあ元子っていうか、メジャーとの関係はある部分親子の関係、ファミリーのもっと絆の強い関係であって、あとそれに負けないようなもう片っぽにすごい冷静な判断と冷血な心というのを両方持ってる男にしたい。だからね、躊躇なく人を撃つし、だけれども身内には親族のような関わりを持つというような感じというふうに自分では解釈してるんですけども。はい。
I see. So basically, what Mr. Takeshi said was, again, Aramaki's character is both fatherly to the major and yet ruthless and cold to his enemies. So that ambivalent of the warmth as versus to cold as steel type of personality, I guess, is his take on the character that he played. Now, how was it like working with Rupert as a director?
自分も日本で映画の監督をやるんですが、日本では演出というのとカメラワークというのと編集と自分は一人でやってるんですけども、ハリウッドの場合は演技の指導は監督、それからカメラワークはディレクター・オブ・フォトグラフィー、そういうふうに分かれてて、カメラが常に3台か4台あるし、最高では5台ぐらいあって、廊下を歩いてくるだけで、38カットあったりなんかしますからね。それをからまた選び出す編集マンというのがいて、それがまた選んで最終決定をするというようなあれなんで、この監督はなんでこんなに撮るんだって初めは思いましたけども、その理由を聞いたら、例えば編集マンにそれがなかったらその部分の絵はないのかって言われるのがやっぱりディレクターとして非常に大変なことなんで、とりあえず全部撮っとくという感じなんだって言われて納得しましたけど。
So basically, Mr. Takeshi was basically saying when he takes his movies, he would be directing it, he'd be editing it, he'd be doing all the work himself. But in this production, there's the director, Rupert, and then you also have the editor, the editing director, and you have the director of photography. Everybody has their own position, the job, the responsibilities that they have to do. And he was quite amazed at how many cuts, how many shots was taken for one scene. And Rupert actually told him that was for the editor, the editing director, to be able to choose from all the myriads of choices that they could select. And he said that was quite surprising or different from the mode that he was used to. Now, what impressed you, Mr. Takeshi, the most about working on this film?
ニュージーランド、オークランドからウェリントンに行く飛行機が揺れたっていうことぐらいですかね。死ぬほど怖かったという。
I see. The plane ride in New Zealand was very, very shaky, I guess, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, the star of Ghost in the Shell, Scarlett Johansson. Have a seat, please. Welcome to Japan, Scarlett.
Thank you.
How does it feel to be back in Japan?
Oh, I love Tokyo. It's such a great city. And the last time I had the chance to work here, I was much younger than today. Well, I was 17. And, every time I've returned here, it feels familiar to me, I think, because I had those, very early days here.
Right.
So it's a wonderful city. I love it.
I see. Thank you very much. Now, were you aware of Ghost in the Shell prior to being cast?
No, I didn't know the material, and when the script came to me, it also came with a copy of the anime, and when I first saw it, it seemed quite daunting. I think because the anime is so philosophical, and I didn't know how it would exactly translate to a live-action film, or really what I could contribute to it exactly. But it was alluring, definitely alluring.
Right. You just mentioned alluring. What was alluring about the role? You played the Major?
When I met with Rupert, and I'd been sent this pretty impressive visual presentation, it was just absolutely magnificent. And I think you'll see the result of it shortly. But, we started to talk about the journey of the Major and how the character was going to be driving the story. And I started to imagine that this was a character who was really living a very unique experience of somebody who has an idea of who she thinks she was, and then who she is now, the life she's living now, and then the person that she feels she is, this sort of gnawing, clawing feeling she has in her ghost, and that being able to kind of play these three sides, we called it the sort of the ego and the super ego and the id.
Id, yeah.
And that was pretty enticing for me.
Right. Okay. So I guess what goes on inside is extremely complicated as far as the character of the Major is concerned. But how did you train for? Again, it's a very cerebral part, and yet you must be very physical. What kind of training did you do for this role?
Of course, I did a lot of training just because I wanted to be able to have the physical presence of somebody who seemed very capable. And then, of course, I had to actually be quite capable. And luckily, I have had a lot of fight training and weapons training for all those little Marvel movies that I did. So it actually comes quite in handy because you kind of know
Right.
that physical vocabulary.
Right.
And then did a lot of, it's a lot of repetition, and then a lot of tactical training, which I'd never done before, like room clearing and all of that stuff, to just be as efficient with the weapon as possible.
I see. Now, how was it working with Rupert?
You know what, Rupert and I had, I think from the very beginning, we were really dedicated to our partnership because, we think we both knew very early in those early days that we would have to do this walking hand in hand in order to maintain the integrity of the work and what we had set out, this kind of mission statement that we made in the beginning. And I think, again, when I see the pieces of the film, I see the result of that teamwork, really. So we were each other's partner, for sure.
How was it working with Takeshi?
I think when you work with somebody who has been so great for such a long time, you kind of stand back and observe. And it's interesting. I feel that acting, it's kind of a, as Rupert was saying earlier. Of course, Takeshi was speaking Japanese. I was speaking English, but acting is such a it's human. It's all about what's going on inside, and I felt so many complicated things, in Aramaki's presence. Sort of a feeling of shame at times, a feeling of wanting to, an eagerness to please, and then also feelings at times like a petulant child, and having all of these feelings acting opposite somebody who we didn't share this language, but we share a universal language as kind of, this, which is just the emotional, vocabulary that we have as two actors. It was very moving.
So you felt that maybe being professionals in theater and acting kind of transcended, I guess, language. I guess you guys kind of communicated in a universal language, so to speak.
Totally, absolutely. Yeah, that's the beauty, I think, of being able to work on a film as diverse as this, because you really, you're working with actors from many different backgrounds, theater backgrounds. Some are are working in dance, others are, in photography, and it was really, we all shared the same, the kind of that connectivity that
Right.
that we all, that kind of brings us together, I think.
I see. Now, what would you say to so many fans throughout the world, to all the fans of Ghost in the Shell? What can you tell them? What do you want them to expect? What do you want them to feel?
I think for me, I have such a soft spot for the Major, of course, because and her journey of self-discovery. And I think this film, for me, is really, even though it's set in this explosive world with, that's just extraordinary, and it's so visually stunning, and it's so action-packed, it's really, to me, a story it's a coming-of-age story, and a story about the loss of innocence, and then also the kind of rebirth that you can have from that. And I hope that the fans connect with the Major the way that I connected with her.
Her journey, so to speak. Yeah. Okay, now I have some more questions to Rupert. Tell me, I'd like to ask you a few more questions concerning the movie. Juliette Binoche, she's in the movie. Can you tell us about her part, what role she plays?
Juliette plays the head of Hanka Robotics, which created the Major. And she, in a way, is the creator and the mother of the Major.
I see, okay. And tell us about the role that Michael Pitt plays.
Well, you give a lot away when you start talking about characters. So suffice to say that he's involved in the film in quite a substantial way, and he's a thrilling actor to watch. And I think him and Scarlett, some incredible scenes together, very, very dramatic, very moving. Also with Kaori Momoi, who's in the audience somewhere tonight, a legendary actor.
Absolutely.
Really beautiful to watch her as well. We were very lucky. Rila Fukushima, another actress who's with us here tonight. We really kind of bonded in our little island on the other side of the world, cut off from our loved ones. We were in there kind of battling in the trenches every day, and we had a great, diverse group of wonderful actors. So we enjoyed ourselves.
Actually, so even behind the scene, there was a Ghost in the Shell community. You guys kind of shared the same mindset.
Well, you're like a circus when you work in film. You pitch your tent and you stay there for a year, and then you drink all the bars dry and eat all the restaurants dry, and then you go off to the next one.
I see. Now, as much as you can divulge, can you tell us about the characters that comprise Section 9?
Yeah, I mean, Major is a human brain in a synthetic body, and she was built to head Section 9. So Section 9 really are tasked with tracking down a ruthless and murderous cyber terrorist. And that's kind of the A story, the projection story of the film, but the film has a lot more than just that. I think like great film noir, you have a detective story that drives you forward. But what always happens in film noir is an emotional journey of self-discovery and a lot of kind of action. And, for us, the world is so amazing. And I think cinematically, it'll be a very fresh take on futurism that people haven't seen before. There's a lot of the anime there, there's a lot of the manga there, but there's also an updating and a reappraisal of that.
I see. Scarlett, can you add something to how you felt about the movie in general? If you would like to kind of make a final view of what your experience in this movie.
Gosh, that's such a loaded question because it was such a. It was. I feel I grew a lot when I making this film. I learned a lot about my my limitations. I learned a lot about my capability, and I think when you play a character that is some step removed from human, and you don't have the nuance and the tools of, those things, those little things that make us human. It's just a very challenging experience because there's so much going on inside, but what's going on inside it's impossible to reflect completely outside. So that paring away of that was just it was a very unique experience for me, and so it's impossible to kind of have to put it all into a log line. But I'm very proud of the work that we did.
Absolutely. And you have been within the genre. You've played several roles within the genre. So I guess, again, this was a new challenge for you, something you've never experienced before.
Certainly, it was something I'd never experienced before, and I think I've pushed the genre all the way I can.
I see. Okay.
I don't know. I was a person without a body. Now I'm a brain without a body. I think. Maybe
Wow.
next time I need a body and a brain together. Yeah, we'll see.
Okay. Now, Rupert, we're going to be playing the trailer next. Would you like to add a few words before we watch the trailer?
I think I'd just like to thank everyone for coming out tonight, really. This has been a big part of our launching the film, to come to Tokyo and not to do it in somewhere else. It was very important to us to come here, and I'm very thankful that people came to see. I'd like to thank Mr. Noma of Kodansha and Mr. Ishikawa of I.G, who really partnered with us to bring this to the world. It's a very hallowed property here, and I think hopefully the sounds of Ghost in the Shell will resonate around the world and come back to Tokyo and come back to Japan and the Japanese people. And I hope that they feel that we have respected and honored the heritage of Ghost in the Shell and are proud of what they see on the screen.
たけしさん、一言トレーラー見る前にお願いしたいんですけども。Oh, I have to say it in English first. Mr. Takeshi, would you like to add a few words before we watch the trailer?
ちょっとだけ映像を見せていただいたんですけども、かなりすごいですよ。本当に悔しいくらいお金かかってます。私の映画100本ぐらいできるんじゃないかってぐらいすごいです。それがハリウッドだと思いますけども、あとやっぱり感動するのは特殊メイクとかいろんなフィギュアのデザイナーの凄さっていうのはつくづくやっぱり映画っていうのは総合芸術だっていうのが本当に応えました。それに参加できたこと本当に嬉しいです。映像をとにかく楽しんでください。
Okay, thank you very much. Scarlett, can you give one last message to your fans about how great this movie is?
One last message. I think it's always my hope when making a film that you have that you connect with people in that dark theater and they're able to escape into some other world that we've created for them. My hope for the fans is that they get taken on a ride that is not just explosive and exciting, but also, allows them to be reflective and to be, curious, more curious about themselves from watching this film. So I hope it resonates that deeply with them.